Good morning, Mark Sudduth here with your Hurricane Pro and Hurricane HD video blog for Wednesday, May the 15th, 2013. Today is the start of the Pacific hurricane season, and this time of year, not much in the way of development anywhere in either the Atlantic or the Pacific, but with water temperatures in this region being just warm enough for something to develop, we do sometimes see a tropical depression or a tropical storm or a hurricane form this time of year. There's 8 development points over the last 100 years in the eastern Pacific. Interestingly enough, there's also 8 of them in the Atlantic at this same time frame, May 10th through the 20th. We're still just about 2 weeks away from the Atlantic Basin hurricane season starting, but in the eastern Pacific, for whatever reason, they've chosen to make May 15th the start. And lo and behold, today, the start of the East Pacific season, right on cue, we have Invest Area 90E. Now, what does that mean? Briefly, I'll try to describe it for you as best as I can. Think about all the different disturbances that form in the Eastern Pacific or the Atlantic or anywhere around the globe for that matter in a given year. Well, instead of calling them disturbance this or blob of clouds that, they give the disturbances a number, 90 through 99, and then a letter corresponding to the basin that they are located in. So E is East Pacific, L is for Atlantic, and so forth. W would be for the Western Pacific as an example. And that being the case, this area right here is Invest Area 90E. It is the first of what will probably be a series of areas of investigation in the Eastern Pacific. So they give it a 90 because it's at the beginning. And once they go to 99, then they start over again, 90 through 99. And the E is for East Pacific. So there you go. And you can see that there is some rather disorganized but fairly deep tropical convection. That's the engine that runs tropical cyclones. You have to have that convective activity, the upward motion in the atmosphere to release the heat from the tropics is called the latent heat release, and that warms the atmosphere around the system, and everything can keep going like an engine. And this is where it's located, well off the southeast coast or southwest coast of Mexico in the southeast Pacific. And if we look at water temperatures where this is located, very warm indeed, 30 degrees Celsius, 29 degrees Celsius through this region. Very warm water temperatures, as you would expect this time of year. And that's part of the reason why the Eastern Pacific season starts a little bit earlier than the Atlantic. Notice, too, down here along the equator, water temperatures are colder, much colder, because of upwelling off of South America. You would think being along the equator that those water temperatures would be warmer, but you have strong high pressure up here in the northern Pacific, and the winds blow from the east to the west across the equator, the trade winds, and that tends to keep the water colder down in the deepest of the tropics, right along the equator, than you see just to the north or south of it. Interesting little tidbit for you. Moving right along to tropical cyclone heat potential for this system. This is the true measure of how much energy is in the ocean, not just the warm water at the surface, but how deep in the ocean does that warm layer extend. And in the Eastern Pacific this time of year, it's pretty extensive, that warm water, what we call tropical cyclone heat potential, fairly stout for right now. So this system does have some energy to take advantage of. All of the computer models indicate that it'll track off to the west-northwest away from the Mexican coastline, so no worries to land along the Mexican or Central American coast, not even the Baja. This will move away from land as a strong area of high pressure resides to its north, and off it will go away from the Mexican coastline over time. Now, this is part of a fairly impressive MJO pulse for this time of year. That's the Madden-Julian oscillation of enhanced tropical convection. And if you look at the Climate Prediction Center's what they call the Global Tropics Hazards and Benefits Outlook based on the MJO, The Madden-Julian Oscillation brings periods of increased convection in the tropics, and when it's passing through with that increased convection, you typically have above normal rainfall and above normal chances of tropical cyclone development. And on the flip side, the dry side of the MJO pulse, those different phenomena are below normal. So if we look at the May 15th through May 21st time period, we see this hatched area right here, the red and white sort of candy cane looking hatched area. That is the tropical cyclone formation confidence level, and right now they have it as moderate. And in the Caribbean, you see this yellow hatched area. That is for below average rainfall, because generally speaking, the MJO is pretty weak here in the Atlantic Basin, but it's starting to pick up some in the eastern Pacific as we see an increase in that tropical convection. Then if we go look out at May 22nd through the 28th, the increase in convection in the Caribbean, we see above average rainfall confidence predicted for the Caribbean. So towards the end of the month, we should see sort of this monsoon trough set up across the Caribbean Sea out of the eastern Pacific, and maybe, just maybe, the chance of something developing in the Atlantic Basin. But this is part of a normal cycle where we have enhanced convection that circles the globe about every 30 to 40 days, and it is possible that we'll see a tropical storm form from that in the eastern Pacific, from that invest area 90E. Now, in the Indian Ocean, we have Cyclone O1B. I cannot pronounce the name of it. It's something like Mahasin or something like that. I'll just call it O1B. It is currently weak and disorganized down here in the Indian Ocean, but is supposed to take a turn to the northeast and head up into the Bay of Bengal, where it could make landfall as a hurricane. They don't call them hurricanes over there, but as a strong enough tropical cyclone that it would be designated as a hurricane if it were in the Atlantic or Pacific. And it could come into Bangladesh, that extreme southeast corner here of Bangladesh. And this is Myanmar, used to be called Burma. And that area is very prone to storm surge, as you may be aware of. Over time, there have been some significant cyclones to impact this area, and any kind of water that gets funneled up into the bay here tends to rise into that river delta, and it can cause problems. That's something that's being tracked by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, and of course, you can track that right along in Hurricane Pro and Hurricane HD, as they have all kinds of stuff for the globe. Yeah, so it's not just Atlantic and East Pacific in your app, so be sure to take advantage of that. All right, so that is it for the tropics. The first day of the East Pacific hurricane season, that's beginning today, and then in another 16 days, we will begin watching the Atlantic Basin for the next 6 months, maybe longer, who knows, right? It is supposed to be a very busy season in the Atlantic. We'll have to see how that works out. There will be an updated forecast from Colorado State University on June the 3rd, I believe. That's a Monday. And then towards the end of the month, during National Hurricane Preparedness Week, which starts on May the 26th, we will eventually have the hurricane seasonal forecast and outlook from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The forecasts give you a good guidepost as to what to expect for overall activity. None of those forecasts can explain to you the impact of hurricanes or tropical storms to your specific location. I think most people are hopefully intelligent enough to understand that. But to know that it is possibly going to be a much busier season, and then really what kind of storms are they expecting to have, and the intense hurricanes is what I am most interested in, those Category 3, 4, and 5s, and those are forecast to be a little bit more numerous this year, maybe as many as 5, depending on what forecast you look at. So we'll go over all of that information as it comes out. All right, well, I am on the road myself for the next 3 days, so I won't have any updates for the Hurricane Pro and Hurricane HD apps until this weekend. And then on Saturday, I will resume and begin the daily version of this update. So you can look for this each day, hopefully each morning before 12 noon. I'll try to get this in and provide you with some very good in-depth analysis, hopefully easy to understand information. Until I talk to you again on Saturday, have a good rest of your week ahead. I am Mark Sudduth, my website, hurricanetrack.com. As always, an honor and a privilege to produce these videos for you, and I will talk to you again on Saturday.